Hi folks, I'm Andy McSweeney of Andy McSweeney Photography and Photo Tour Bruges. Welcome to this video tutorial on handling event photography at the Costumes in Bruges event. If you don't know the Costumes in Bruges event, well, it is Venetian-masked taking over our city for a beautiful free street parade, posing for photos and doing really beautiful movements and kind of energy traveling through this beautiful city. It was started in 2015 by the Discover Bruges Hotel Group. They wanted to show the city in the beauty and quietness of January, and who knows, maybe get an extra guest or two through promoting this event. So it was duly started, and every year since we've been fortunate enough to have our very own Venetian-masked parade take over in the months of January. Now, a couple things to go through just real quick because, well, as we're going to talk about, this video is slightly complicated. I'm going to try and be brief and hopefully not boring. That's where the notes come in. And that's simply, guys, just to let you know a little bit about this video before we start. I think it's suitable to beginner and intermediate photographers especially. Even if you're a casual photographer on the smartphone, you might pick up a few tips that are handy. And those of you who are more experienced in your photography, pros if you will, I think you'll still maybe get some value out of sitting through this video, either to be reminded about some tips that you knew already, or maybe discover a nugget or two of information that you may not have thought of. Next to that, disclaimers, which are just mostly on the technical end. We are a very lo-fi production house here at Andy McSweeney Photography and Photo Tour Bruges. You can see by the Andy Cave that we have no money for sets or high-value production. So the same extends over to the video tutorial itself. In fact, this was the very first video tutorial in an event setting that I ever did. And my cameraman, Ian Van Landuyt, did a fantastic job. However, you'll notice that there is a little bit of chaos in the day itself, and some of that crawls into our production values. So I think everything clear and working, otherwise I wouldn't have put it in the video. The worst you'll have to suffer through is I didn't have a chance to get the sound mastered, but I think it's fairly clear, and you can hear what I'm saying where it counts. And then just next to that, well, what else? It was madness. So chaos, and just enjoy that, and hopefully you enjoy the tips that I was just pulling out of my head as we were running around. Oh, and a couple things also relating to the clips as far as the technical quality. There were two clips that we recorded that didn't really work out that kind of matter towards this video, and that's on camera settings and just the general outro of the video. So I finished the video with some camera settings back here in the Andy Cave, as well as going through thanks to everyone who's been a part of this event. So there's that. It won't be long or boring, or at least I hope not, and that's at the end of the video, so stick around for that. And then the last thing on the disclaimer front of rubbishing my own work before I even show you a frame of the tutorial is just that my wardrobe was all over the place, gang. You know, that rainy weather, that cold that we get sometimes here in Bruges in January, it was hitting fairly hard on the day of recording. And on top of it, of course, I had my camera gear on me with a double harness camera strap and a lens hanging off at one point, a camera bag strapped over me most of the time, and even my headphones hanging out because I had to be ready for calls here and there as one of the sponsors and organizers of this event. So that rubbishes my work before we've even seen it, but I hope you enjoy it nonetheless. If you have any comments, thoughts, please leave them in the comments or drop me an email. You know where to find me. And yeah, what else is there to say? Let's check out this tutorial. Hope you find it handy. And even if you don't, please check out the Costumes in Bruges event. You can get all details, maps, etc. from costumesinbruges.com. Enjoy, folks. Hi ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages. Welcome to the Backstage area here in central Bruges. We are just about to start Costumes de Bruges, which is the yearly event held every second January over here in this beautiful medieval city. with the costume Regarde Venice, yeah, saying hello and walking around the city with lots of love. I'm fortunate enough that I have one of these steward jackets and a little backstage pass that's hidden in all this padding, so that means I can run around and do some fun on the photography. I also thought it might be a good idea to do a little photo tutorial, so I've got Ian Van Landuit on the camera working away and tracking me down. And as far as the cameras I'm going to be using today, gang, I'm going to be going exclusively Fujifilm, the X-T2 on the crop system with the 14mm 2.8 wide angle, and on the other side of things, kindly loaned to us by Fujifilm Belgium, we have the Fujifilm GFX 50S. That, boys and girls, in case you don't know, is a beautiful medium format sensor wrapped around a beautiful system all around. Thanks Fujifilm Belgium for lending me this. It's going to be an interesting experiment, particularly on the GFX, because as I think some of you know, medium format is not necessarily made for event photography, but the GFX is no slack, and we're going to see what we can do. Alright, looks like the costumers are about to go out. I hope you find this tutorial useful. If you do, of course, please share, like, subscribe, do all that kind of good stuff. And of course, welcome to join me for a more normal day here in Bruges as Photo Tour Bruges for walking tours. Alright, it's time to go. Let's see what we can do. So gang, you can see we're just at the opening part of the event. The costumiers have already gone down and we're starting to do a show. I wanted to film something up here just to give you an idea of what kind of crowd we're dealing with. So come on over here and take a look. There are more than a few people taking photos. There are certainly some serious photographers So this is the kind of situation we're going to be dealing with. And I think it's entirely possible to get some great photos. I know this can be a little bit intimidating, and again, I hope this is where this tutorial comes in handy towards you getting some winners. Let's go chase them! Let's go! Ready? Okay. Boys and girls, kids of all ages, it is time to talk lenses as we get caught up to the costumiers. As I mentioned, right now I'm set up on a double wide angle tip. That's what she said. I know it's going to be the joke of the day. I'm a big wide angle shooter because, well, that's how I like to roll. And actually at events, I really like my wide angle because instead of, you know, even as a tall guy holding over the crowd and seeing what I can get that way, I take a little bit of initiative, I use a little bit of moxie, and then I sneak into the crowd, get to the front, and then I've got a wide open lens barrel so I can catch everything that I'm looking at. I also just generally find it's a little easier to control depth when you get to the wider side of the lens. This happens to be a 2.8 jobby over here on the X-T2 with the 14mm. Even though I'm set up at 2.8, unless I'm standing really close to the object, I have a really good chance of depth of field across the frame. That wide angle is going to make the difference. Sorry, I got to watch out as I'm walking. So yeah, wide angle over here. We're set up on the GFX also with a wide angle right now. But gang, and I'll just dip into the bag for this. I've also got the 120mm macro set up for the GFX. This is of course a macro lens, but I can use it as a short telephoto very, very happily. And in our cameraman's bag, Ian is carrying the 250mm telephoto lens for the GFX, which is a pretty impressive piece of kit. It's heavy. It's heavy! He says it's heavy, and he's totally right. So that's the range of lenses I'm going to be working with right here, right now. And it's worth mentioning for the 250mm, since Fuji was kind enough to lend it to me while I was there, I got nice and cheeky and said, give me that teleconverter 1.4 times while we're there. So that'll give me a little extra zoom as needed, and should make for a good time, or at least I hope so, hey? So lens-wise, just always be careful, you know. I get this question regularly with Photo Tour. What lens should I bring? And it's always a difficult call. Myself, wide angle, a telephoto, as we'll walk through in a little bit.
that works for me, and there's reasons for it. Okay? Okay. I think we got ahead of the crowd. Yes. Look at how a shortcut pays off. That's that last segment just coming back at you. So, now we're in front of everything. Maybe we can do a continuous sequence on this video recording where I start jumping into the crowd with this wide angle after all that talk. So, since it's fast moving, I've got my choice now. Same focal range on the GFX and the XT2. When you get to medium format sensors, of course with the size of the sensor, don't expect too much fast auto focusing. We're just going to cut to the chase and go straight to the XT2 because, well, this one is very much made for the fast autofocus. You notice I am taking the clip off. That's all well and good. I always do try and keep my clips going, but I also have extra clips so that if I have to go a little more freestyle and loose, then I'm ready to roll. We'll talk about this camera harness and clips in a bit. All right, let's see what we can do. This is where it goes freestyle, and hopefully we're going to get something that works out. Public events are always really hard to, just be able to plan too much as far as the shot set and everything else. It is helpful when the event goes for a couple days, like Costumes de Bruges. They do 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, four walks in total, and a night performance on the Burg Square with the Nocturne. So, this is where it's worth staying a couple nights at one of the fine hotels here, and then just getting a few more hours to be able to get your options. This is the kind of thing you're going to be shooting lots and lots of photos of and only getting a few back because of the crowd, because of the chaos, because whatever else. So see what you can do, and speaking of which, I'm going to see what I can do right here now. I'll just hop over. Oh, what's that going? So guys, as you see with the wide angle, I can get really close to my subject, and of course we'll insert some photos afterwards, but just for a quick peek off camera, you can see with the wide angle I can get my subject nice and clear, and then I can show some of the backdrop around it. And while we're here, hey, look at that. We got the little moment. We're going to get in very close. Merci bien. Luckily, these guys know me, and they know I'm crazy jumping up in front of them, so they were ready for it. Otherwise, always just indicate to your subjects if you can. The more they know, the better job they can do, and the more they can relax and enjoy themselves too. Got it? Better. Good. Let's see. See that? See this, ladies and gentlemen? This is politi. Polizzi. If you want to anglicize it, we could say politi, and I like to think the ones in Bruges are, but of course this is the local police force. Just like the stewards that you see over here who have their jerseys to distinguish them from the rest, the police are someone that you want to listen to at these public events. It can be crazy, it can be chaotic, and these people are the law for a good reason because they've been trained to look out and help you in these situations from it getting out of hand. So if you have anything in any official way coming up to you and saying, please don't do that, your law is to listen. And if you don't listen, you're going to have a bad time. Not great photos from the holding cell, is it, boys and girls? Even in Belgium, the beer sucks in the holding cell. Keep that? Keep that? D'accord? A little bit busy, isn't it? I guess if it's a little bit busy and, you know, we have to wait, I might as well do a cheap, blatant promo for Bruges. Guys, this is the Begijnhof. It's where the nuns live in Bruges, and it's an absolutely beautiful, beautiful location. Don't be fooled by the number on top saying 1776. It goes a little further back than that. And it's actually still an active nunnery, so it's a really interesting location to park up. It's one of the most famous in Bruges because it's in the main historical area, so definitely not hard to find. If you're here digging around for general photo tips for Bruges, I can say this is not your typical day in January. The rest of the month and even into February will be extremely quiet. Obviously you'll have a winter vibe going on, but as you can see as we're landing, even in the winter, without snow or anything, it ain't too shabby. And if you're not here in the quiet months of Bruges, just get here early. A lot of the groups who are passing through Bruges don't tend to land till 9 a.m. at the earliest. So you have a good chance of catching it on the quiet. And if you're here fishing for photo tips, think of a neutral density filter if those crowds are out of control. You do a 30-second shot, everyone's moving through fast. You should be able to get them out there or at least make it look interesting. Away from the music. Okay guys, so now we're inside the Begijnhof proper. You can see it's individual modeling time. All these costumes have broken off into smaller groups so that everybody can have a chance on a photo. I've got the shot, so I'm going to take it. This is a nice little opportunity, and this is where the telephoto plays out well. Yep. Oui. Parfait. Garde. Oui, parfait. Et encore. Merci. Et juste toi, s'il vous plaît. Merci. Ah, c'est trop joli. Ça, oui, exactement. Proche ou pas? Exactement. Merci. Et juste un dernier. Merci. So boys and girls, see how I got very close to my model? That was the joy of having a macro lens on hand. You can get nice and close and get what I need out of that. We're going to insert some photos right here and now. And she gave me a little piece of her costume. I feel honored. Look at that. That's going right there with pride. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is where we break a little bit of the illusion of one of these tutorial videos. I've got a whole extra bag, thanks to Ian being my bag bitch slash buddy. We're going to open it up and see what we can play with. Try not to break the glass while we're doing it. Yes. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's just take it to the ground. So, the lens we're going to play with next is this bad boy. This is the 250mm telephoto lens by Fujifilm. It's made for the GFX and I love it to bits. Usually, when I'm in these kind of situations and Mrs. Andy isn't nearby, I turn off the camera. I find a nice quiet corner, maybe somewhere I can put the lens that I'm taking off. I try and keep this downwards and then get that covered so that there's no dust going in there. And then quick as I can, boom, in action. Works out well, and look at this bad boy. This is a very special lens. It's got a good amount of reach. I'm going to make sure all my settings are all set up before I do anything. And actually I'll do a separate review on this lens so I don't have to babble on. But even though the GFX system is not made for event photography, this lens is very much made for portraits and even some event photography. I think with the light being good like it is and the costumes looking as beautiful as they are, we'll manage. We'll manage. Okay, let's get to action. Let's go. All right, boys and girls, this is where the telephoto really does pay for itself because with a bit of distance I can still catch what I need. People will sometimes hop in front of you and you have to have a little patience at that point, but by and large you can get to where you need to be without getting right in someone's face. And of course we'll insert these in post-production, but you can see a little bit as the memory card works it out. But basically at some point, yeah, it's a little dark, but I think you can see I got some good results from that situation. So very, very nice way to play. And actually now that it's opened up, a little bit as far as the amount of people going through, this is where I might just throw this guy aside, indicate to the performer that I'd like to get one more photo, going on the wide angle, and okay. So I always like to say hello when I have the chance. I think it's nice and just going up and going tack, 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 tack. And this young lady is all prepared and ready, so I don't have to do anything. On y va? Alors. Oh, maybe turn on the camera is an idea, boys and girls. That's always helpful. Now I'm just going to work through the back screen so I can keep interaction with my model. She is doing a fantastic job, so there's not really much to say as far as suggestions or what I'd want. One of the joys also of using a wide angle, and I usually like to warn people, je vais juste approcher très très proche. I'm going to go in very, very close because with this wide angle, then I can get a really intimate and up close kind of situation. This is also where, with depth of field as a concern, I might just drop down and then go up again. And that way I have my choice when I get back to base of how the depth of field works out. And never forget to say thank you. These people are working hard. C'est toujours apprécié. Let's keep moving. So, why would I have the teleconverter on an already considerable zoom? Get that extra reach like in the situation over there. One of the really interesting things also, thank you, don't step on the grass, that's how we get around this. And gang, gardez-le. The only drawback when using super telephoto, you might have to step back even to get the wide version of the shot. So a little bit of patience, a little bit of care with the crowd in the background. It is a busy, busy day. Merci. Merci. But we got what we needed, and of course we said thank you afterwards because that's how you don't drive people crazy and not be a dickhead at this kind of event. All right, guys, so
being one of the sponsors and one of the stewards for the Costumes de Bruges event, I do have the backstage access that is really awesome. That means that I can take some photos of the costumes while the performers are doing their own thing. They're actually getting ready for their performance on Sunday morning now, but I already had a chance to drop by and run around and get some little details of the costumes. Now, I'm not going to be taking photos of the performers while they're getting ready because it's very, very strict in this culture that you don't show yourself getting ready or be associated directly with your character. So, you know, we're going to play it on the sly and get a little creative with it. Fortunately, I have the Fujifilm GFX 50S and the 120mm macro, so I'll be able to get in there nice, tight, close and personal. That's what she said. And for those wider shots where I want to get a little more of the surroundings and a feel about it, I am using the 14mm 2.8 on my X Gear system. Right now I'm using the X-T2, but since this is all recorded in bits and bobs, I was actually using the X-H1 yesterday when I was doing the actual photos. We're using that for filming, so you won't see that on camera. But the 14mm wide angle, especially on a crop system like Fujifilm offers, I can get quite close and do macro-like shots, but still get some of the surroundings. 2.8 will give a nice separation with the depth of field and all that. And of course, with this big bad boy, I'm going to be having some fun getting these really nice up-close details. I don't have it with me right now, but I also was using a Rotolight LED lighting system, so I could just have a little extra illumination. As you can see, it's pretty good in here, but it helps me keep my ISO low. And I was also using a monopod just to help stabilize things. What was nice about the 120mm is it does have internal stabilization, so OIS is in action. However, you know, you want to get it as clear and proper as you can without too much shake, and you don't want to push this OIS more than you need to, so that extra monopod support really helped out. So, why don't we see the results? So as you can see, guys, now we're right at the heart of the Rose and Hood cake. It's a little busier with the crowd, which is again where you don't want to be a dick. I'm going to play, I'm going to take the wide, and let's see if we get anything good, hey? Really lucky, it's nice and quiet, so I'm going to sneak in, but I'm also going to go low so I don't block too many people's shot if they go for it. One of the problems with these kind of events is you always have to watch out where you're standing because of, you know, signs and all that kind of thing. So we're going to maneuver over there, stay low, and see what we can get. And you can see the customers are just finishing up, so we've missed our window on the postcard corner, but I think I got a good catch or two. Let's see what else we can get.
Like you might be noticing, I'm using a camera harness, double barrels this morning. This is a hold-fast money maker, and I think it's a good little piece of kit, so, you know, definitely worth thinking about. What I also like about it is, like I'm holding it up for now, if the crowd gets too busy, I can just tuck in like this, and then that way I can slip through people, not worry about the gear getting destroyed, and, you know, still get my photos, because obviously if your camera falls apart because you were stupid with it, not many great photos going to get taken after that, are there? Okay, let's see what we can do. One really critical thing, if you are going through a crowd for the other photographers, try and stay low so you're not blocking their shots, just like this.
Het is allemaal babes.
Look at that, the old photographer shuffle, we made it. Here comes another. That's how you have a chance of victory, friends. And then once you're there, let's see what you can do. Bonjour, bonjour. Si on peut, juste pour un moment. Parfait. Trop parfait. Tiens, Santo, 3, 2, 1. J'attends. Yeah, voilà. Suivant. Parfait, merci. Bon courage. So guys, notice with the wide angle I was able to get in very, very close and intimately with those costumes. I also asked them to stop and give them a little bit of direction. And if we show that full sequence, you'll also notice I waited so I didn't have 10 people randomly sticking out of the shoulder in the background. This is also where, frankly, keeping your aperture number small is well worth your while, because it'll be easier to separate that background even if there are people. So, boys and girls, now you can see the crowd is starting to move through, and that obviously includes the costumes. It's starting to thin out here, but frankly, we've got a lot of traffic to get through, and if you're dealing with the crowd, why don't you see if you can just, you know, prepare a map, or look out for the map we made as part of the event and gave out online. This will give you an idea of where you need to be for the next stop and where they're heading. And instead of chasing through 500 people to get the last person in the crowd who you might already have, you can just reference this, maybe reference your phone and your map, and then get to the next spot without stressing yourself out. The less you can stress out, the more beautiful your photos are going to be. It's just that simple. So, as I mentioned, we referenced our map, we referenced our phone with another map so that we could get the quieter side of things. I think this is much more pleasant to walk through than 500 people all chasing a photo. And for my photography, it also gives me a minute to just, you know, regroup as far as the gear goes, check everything's working out, and that for the next stop I'm ready to go so I'm not just futzing around when I actually land there. In this case, I'm going to stay to the telephoto side of things for a while. I'm also going to put on a 1.4 teleconverter that Fujifilm Belgium also kindly lent me. So that means I'll get a little more reach out of this guy. That's what she said. It's the day of it. That's also what she said. But to get serious, gang, you know, I'm not dealing with 50 people while I'm trying to deal with this. So definite win and worth just thinking about what you're doing while you're moving around and not just chasing the photo blindly. Wander through the quiet sides. Hey, look at this. It's beautiful Bruges too, so we might get a nice landscape shot while we're here, hey? Let's see what we can do! Woo! Woo! Guys and girls, when you have these quiet moments to change your gear, sort things out, this is also where you pull those close to you who matter, who are probably patiently hanging out while you take your photos and supporting you either with coffee in the morning or little things like this thing. Before we talk about the gear and what we're going to do, this is Mrs. Andy, the woman I married, the local Bruggeling that makes me live here because it ain't for the weather. Folks, when I need to change a lens, put on a teleconverter, that kind of thing, well, basically this is where I'm very, very grateful for my partner to be nearby. Come here, you, before we do this. All right. Do that too. This will make them a little more patient when you need to bug them for gear changes. All right, since we just got this GFX from Fujifilm a couple days ago, there is a little bit of a learning curve on knowing the gear, but basically if I give that to the missus and she gives it a good solid grip, that's what she said. It's the one of the day. Now I can take my teleconverter, do my business. Oh, look at that. Catch well in this house. And then guys, when I'm doing all this sort of stuff that I don't want to do on my own, look how much quicker that was than futzing around and dealing with all that sort of stuff. Thank you, Mrs. Andy. Aren't you wonderful? My queen. So, flowers and chocolates after, and lots of love on the day when they're doing this stuff for you, because trust me, it's probably not that exciting for them. Thank you. Thank you for your honesty, dear. Be a better boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, and, you know, maybe you'll get it back in spades. That'll do.
There you go.
Guys, now we're just getting into place to the next location, and as I mentioned, I've changed to the telephoto with the teleconverter, so 250 millimeters on the GFX with the 1.4 teleconverter. Most critical thing beyond the gear at this point, even though it does relate to the gear, is I make sure that this thing is not just standing free and ready to be knocked. So, first and foremost, you get some safety in there, and, you know, while you're maneuvering the crowds, okay, we've got a nice light situation at the moment where it's not too crazy, but it is going to get crazy in a moment. So, with that, I have a chance of survival if I get knocked, but at the same time, I'm also just generally going to be a little more aware of things. And particularly with these big telephoto lenses, maybe look at the Peak Design clip where you can just take it, have it on the lens mount, and then drop it in and you're ready to go. And always watch your manners while you are doing that sort of clipping, because who needs to piss anyone off if we have the choice? Peace, love, and happiness, brothers and sisters. That's the way forward. Might even get you some good gear if you work that kind of karma. Now, this is where the wide angle lives, dies, breathes, and does its best. I'm nice and close to this performer. It's taken a nice moment for me. Beautiful background with lots of life. With the wide angle, I can get a nice, tight and close. It is a little rainy, but of course the X gear can take it. And with a little bit of patience to make sure the crowd isn't too random, maybe a quick exposure check while I'm there. Now it's just a matter of patience while we get the background cleaned up. There it is. And as you're noticing, I'm taking a series of photos so I have the best choices possible after the fact. Oh, that would probably work out a bit better. There we go, there we go, there we go. And quick aperture change. There we go. Okay, boys and girls, now it's the time for the costumiers to break into individuals so that there's time for some individual photography, whether it's selfies from people wandering up on that, or us crazy photo nuts trying to get some nice head and shoulders or whatever you have. This, I also find, is a good opportunity to just do a quick bag check, make sure that everything's sorted out and proper. I do have, of course, my nice day bag that works well for me. This is from Think Tank. Look at that. Let's cover it properly. Right now, I'm just going to do a quick check of our Backstage bag. My bag buddy has been kind enough to haul this around, and it's been sitting behind the camera recording this. I'm just going to take a quick peek in there, because I know from earlier that when I put away the telephoto lens, yep, I felt it where just the lens caps were a little bit loose on the back. So I think, yep, I'm not going to pull it out right now, but trust me, it's a little loose. So it's good that I just took a minute and, made sure that was okay. And at the same time, while I'm looking at my bag and seeing that it's raining outside, I can also remember by checking my bag that I have a rain cover if I need it. Now fortunately the Fujifilm GFX and the X-T2 are weather sealed, so I got no big problems here, but this is the kind of thing that I'll throw in the bag anyways. And that just comes down to, thinking ahead and thinking worst case scenario. Even with weather sealing, these things aren't exactly built for swimming pools, and sometimes with the Belgian weather it goes like that. So good to have options. And then just finally on the bag itself, it's the same with my think tank. Here, I'm just going to zip it up so a $3,000 lens doesn't fly out. We've already got it ready here with the rain cover. And this is why I recommend just, going for a proper photography bag or something that can take this kind of abuse. Because in photography you end up in a lot of extreme situations, and the gear can take a lot, but it will hit limits. That's where, just by sitting in the bag, you can make sure that you don't trash a $3,000 piece of technology. Hey!
Okay, I hope we enjoyed that. It was my very first outdoor event video ever, as I think a lot of you know because I said it at the top of the video, but I hope it was helpful. I like to think there's some good advice in there. It certainly served me well over my time in event photography, and it should help you. All right, like I talked about at the top of the video, there was no outro from outdoor recording that worked out to my satisfaction enough to put in this amateur little, casual video that we did. And at the same time, the section on camera settings didn't really work out. So we're gonna fix that here and now back in the Andy Cave by doing our outro just like this and talking about camera settings just like now. On the camera settings side, well, on your basic exposure triangle of the aperture, the shutter speed, and the ISO, I'm generally with the aperture looking for the lowest number possible. So I like to keep, very, very low as far as that F number is, because the lower the number for the aperture, the lower my depth of field, as at least part of the math. So that's already, one major factor I'm thinking of. It'll give me the best chance of a soft depth of field in the background, which will separate all the madness away from the costume that I might be trying to focus on. So that's on the aperture side. Then in the exposure triangle, we get to the shutter speed, which generally I like to keep nice and fast, at least 1/25th of a second, if the combination in the exposure triangle works out, because I want to get a nice, sharp, still photo. Unless I'm trying to indicate motion, I normally don't want to go under 1/25th of a second. And to be honest, if I can get 2/50th of a second, 3/20th of a second, or even higher, I might well consider it, particularly if my aperture is going to be wide open with that low F number, and I'm in the range where I can start offering up fast shutter speeds. So that's the thought on that. And then to finish off the exposure triangle, we've got the ISO, which, well, I let the camera do part of the work on this. A lot of modern cameras, you can set auto ISO, and during one of these crazy events, I want the camera to do some of the work so I can focus on the real world around me or other camera settings that are a little more pertinent at the moment. So I float the ISO in auto ISO mode. Leave a comment if you don't know what I'm talking about. But basically, that means that from 200 ISO to 3200 ISO, the camera's going to pick as long as I have a 1/25th of a second, which I set there in the auto ISO settings. So like I say, leave a comment if that doesn't make sense. These videos are very loose, so I understand if it's a little bit disjointed as far as taking the information in. But on the base camera settings, that's what I'm thinking about with the exposure triangle. When it comes to lenses, I talked about it in the video. I mean, two very different formats between the GFX 50S and the X-T2. I think for a lot of event photography, I'd still prefer my X-T2 or a nice crop camera, maybe full frame camera, because the autofocus modes in those tend to be optimized. Although, having said that, since we recorded this video last year, Fujifilm has come out with the GFX 100S, which has way quicker autofocus, so maybe the end is nigh as far as that comparison. However, I do find that generally a crop camera works out to the speeds I'm looking for, and also, even though it sometimes gives me a little too much depth of field because of the sensor size involved compared to, say, a medium format, it works out really well, and in my case, I like what Fujifilm does with their lenses and everything else, so I'm a happy bunny there. I like the wide end of the lens, so a zoom would be logical. I was using prime lenses on that situation, and they were 21mm for full frame equivalent, but a 16 to 35mm zoom lens for a wide angle on a full frame, 10 to 24 for the crop system that most of us have. That I think would be suitable and nice and flexible to the style of photography I'm shooting for, which is getting close, like we talked about in the video. And like we also talked about in the video, I like having a nice short telephoto like the GFX 90mm lens, which was also a macro, very handy, but the short telephoto covers a range I like for when I want to step back a bit. And finally, like you saw in the video with that big badass 250mm GFX lens, as well as the teleconverter, I do like a nice long telephoto lens so I can step back or just really get close on a little detail of one of the costumes. So food for thought there. If I was with my usual lens variety of the day instead of this GFX situation and making the video and all the other craziness, I'd probably also have a 24 to 70mm or a 24 to 105mm zoom lens, because they're just so damn handy. But then again, as I said, as a wide angle shooter who's jumping in or looking for a wide view shot in many situations, I'd probably still end up just with the wide angle in my bag, or at least on the camera. So that's how it goes as far as the setting side of things, and I hope between my stutters that made sense and you found something useful. Before I get out of here and sign off properly, I just want to remind you again that every January is the Costumes in Bruges event. We seem to be confirmed for 2021, so that looks to be on. Date to be confirmed, details to be confirmed. And for that, as well as just details in general, sample photos like I've collected over the years, you can head over to the website costumesinbruges.com, which I'll make an overlay for under the screen and hopefully will show up properly. Before I get out of here too, some thanks are very, very much due, and I'm just gonna reach for my little note paper here because I think it's worthwhile. Oh, it's not around, so let's forget it. It's easy enough to remember the people to thank in this because, I mean, they were there and doing their thing. There was the Regroup Venetian group, who were absolutely wonderful with their performances, their patience, the love and joy that they spread around in these events that they do. Please check them out. There's Shopping Bruges, who sponsored this year's event for 2020 with the cold hard cash, and we're very, very grateful for that because we need that to make it happen. So very, very big thanks to Shopping Bruges. And I guess I get to give myself thanks because I'm Photo Tour Bruges and I'm one of the sponsors there, doing the media, spreading the word, helping out where I can, donating photos and whatnot. So I guess thanks to Photo Tour Bruges, just me, for doing that. And I guess since it's me, I can also mention how it's a daily walking tour in the beautiful city of Bruges, Belgium that you might want to check out. Open tours, private tours, smartphones to 10 grand, medium format cameras, all are welcome, and you can see our 600 plus reviews on TripAdvisor if you don't believe me. www.phototourbruges.com. Nice little benefit of being the sponsor on the media. Next to that cheap and shameless plug, gang, let's get back to the thanks, because Stad Brugge, the old city hall of Bruges, deserve thanks for helping on the logistics side of this. They're not throwing in the cold hard cash just yet, but they do set up a stage like they did at the 2019 event when we need it. They provide the logistical support with the police, and they spread the word here and there, either through their Facebook, Instagram, or whatnot, as Stad Bruges. And of course, for you folks visiting Bruges and maybe interested in this and other things, the Visit Bruges channel, which I'll put overlays at the bottom of the screen so you can find those. So thanks to the City Hall for making that happen. I also want to say another thanks to Discover Bruges, the hotel group that helped start this in 2015, because they absolutely rock for getting the ball rolling on this. Also, I think thanks are due to Rita and Johan from Den Helder for being a critical part of the Bruges Regroup Venetian group. So thank you, and thank you to them for that, because we need these people to make this happen. And of course, I want to thank Fujifilm Belgium for lending me that super awesome GFX 50S, as well as the XH1 that we recorded these tutorials on. It's pretty awesome that they enjoy my work and want to support my work by lending me gear where possible. Don't get too jealous, gang, because it only happens every now and then, and if I break it, I gotta buy it. So I was sweating every second of that video that I would just crash the lens into a wall. But Fujifilm Belgium and Dirk especially, you are awesome for supporting my work, and I thank you so much for it. I can also say honestly, for those of you curious, I have to pay for any of the Fujifilm gear that I use and keep on beyond this 1-2 week rental here and there. And I love this stuff. So if you're thinking about a system, I can honestly recommend Fujifilm, and I'm sure I'll make a video in the future on why. So big thanks to them on the corporate side for helping us out on the camera side, and also on the camera side for thanks, a huge and deep thanks to Ian Van Landuit for handling the camera that day and putting up with all the madness, spontaneity, ordering around of let's go, 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 and all the other stuff that entailed being my camera boy for the day. You are not a boy, sir, you are a man, and you are an amazing cameraman, especially considering this is not your trade or something you do on the regular. So thank you again, my friend, for that. You have been here over the years, and it was awesome to have you there for that day. And of course, finally, even though I said it in the video, I'll say it again because I want to keep her happy and smiling and feeding me coffee in the morning. Mrs. Andy is absolutely wonderful for doing all those great things and more, including waiting on us and being the background subject in a couple of those clips in the video, as well as a featured model for that Flowers and Chocolates clip. So thank you, sweetheart, for this and everything that you do, because it really makes a difference, and you deserve all the praise that you get, my queen. Flowers and Chocolates are on the way. Cheesy, huh? I'll bet you if you're single right now, you're going, oh God, please stop and give me some more advice on the way out. I will not do such things, friends. I will wish you well, because I don't want this video to go on too long, and most of you have probably tuned out by now. If you haven't, let me just drop a cheap and nasty reminder to like, share, subscribe, comment, and do all those good things that make this video spread around so that we can have an awesome Costumes in Bruges event for years to come. It spreads the word on this wonderful event, and the more the merrier, I say, and so say we all. And also on the photo tip tutorial side, it might help you out if you find yourself here in the first couple of weeks of January when we hold this beautiful event. So having said all that, thank you again for watching. My name is Andy McSweeney of Andy McSweeney Photography and Photo Tour Bruges. Thank you so much for sitting through this. Now get out there and get shooting. It's fun too.
Okay, recording?
It's recording!
So when you get one of the wives act up and give you some of that blah blah blah, You give him one of these. And then you go to jail. Okay, more serious tip.